about 150 years ago, but it's not been written by Desbarua. He's just compiled them, fables that have come down through the generations.
And quite disturbing, I think you, as you're watching the film, you realise that some of this could be based on truth. I mean, that's the disturbing thing of all fairy tales, I guess, that
Yes.
some of these things could have happened to real women, or particularly in the story. And
I mean, 250 years ago, this was the position that women were in. So it's not that we are trying to portray women, the position of women per se, but it's just the stories themselves portray the women in those days.
It's also oddly that it's called grandmother's tales rather than, which is quite disturbing.
Quite gory for grandchildren to
Yes, exactly. And one of the things that I mentioned in my review was that there seems to be a kind of women are in the film are on the edge of sanity. You would argue that in terms of the characters are pushed to the edge of what would be sane behaviour, or feeding your daughter to a python or something like that. But there's a kind of underlying patriarchy in terms of the whole narrative. It kind of allows for those,
that's a bit strange if you look at it anthropologically, because in the northeast Assam, matriarchy is very strong. So these stories must have been really old when they came down and were compiled by. Position of women is pretty strong in the northeast of India, especially in tribal areas.
I think that's what people don't recognise. Know that, for example, in Kerala, for example, there's a strong tradition, matriarchal culture. Yes. Different parts of India have patriarchal or matriarchal cultures, but there's certainly a suggestion, for example, when the husband buries the children in the jungle, and then the grandfather said, he explains that that's okay. If there's a certain sense that the men are, somehow the women then believe the men's stories.
Yes. I mean, this is something that has been questioned by a lot of people in India itself. But like I said, it's not what we are portraying women per se as the position is not today. This is something that goes back centuries. So I think you have Hansel and Gretel, you have Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Could you just tell us a bit about how you went about funding this kind of great international funding for this film?
Yes, well, we've not accessed any institutional finance for this. It's all family and friends. And we looked at crowdfunding as a very positive source. And we wanted to do it through a platform that was operating in India, because you had problems of transferring money, foreign exchange back to India and stuff like that. So Wishberry, as you saw, we've credited them. So they were our platform for funding the money, and we were able to get at least 10% more than what we were looking at. I mean, what our target was. Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about, you've got some well-known stars, Adil Hussain, Seema Biswas. How did you get them involved in this particular I believe they're both from Assam.
They're both from Assam, and Seema was very keen to do this film because this was, even though she is from Assam, this was her first Assamese film.
So some of you may have seen her, recognise her from Bandit Queen, who's a very famous
film
in the
West. And Adil's there
in so many
Life of Pi, and I don't know, a whole lot of Hollywood. He was also very keen. In fact, Seema was so keen that she came into the unit about 5 days before her shooting actually started. And she roamed around the villages, got a hang of what the people there think, how they feel. She wore their clothes. She conducted a workshop for the other artists who were not so sure. Yeah.
And so in terms of the actual, there's great chemistry between the characters. You believe their stories because of the interaction between them. Could you just tell us a bit about the, did you workshopped the actors heavily before the film was made? Or?
It was a 5-day workshop. We had somebody from the National School of Drama in Delhi, as well as Seema. Seema took the leading role. Right. And we got in all the main actors and actresses, and she conducted the workshop in Guwahati.
One of the other aspects of the film is the sound and the music of the film, which is very haunting and I wonder if you could just tell us a bit about some of the, for example, the music is obviously traditional music from Assam.
It is. We've used like the pipe from the tribal areas, the drums from the tribal areas. It's all, I mean, it's a very collective family effort, and the music has been put together by my nephew, who studied music in Boston, and he did a lot of research and went into very traditional sources for the music. We almost felt he was not going to be able to put everything together at one point, but when he did,
Too much research. Shall we ask some questions from the audience? There's a lady who get to put her hand up there. I don't know if we've got any mics, but yes, we have got a mic coming. If you just wait a second, just there's a mic coming.
Could you tell us something about the locations that the film was based in?
Yeah, we had a lot of difficulty in actually finding the locations because we wanted a place where there were no concrete buildings, there were no electric wires, you know, that kind, anything that sort of linked it to the modern times. So finally we zeroed in on I don't know if any of you have heard of the river island of Maju. It's the largest river island in the world. In the middle of the Brahmaputra river, we have this huge river island, and so we zeroed in there because that's quite cut off from the mainland, and we could actually, of course, many of the sets were recreated, but we even found many buildings, and furniture was all taken from people who were living on the island. Yeah.
Another question? Gentleman at the back there. Sorry, it's a late. Sorry, I didn't see you. Couldn't see you very clear. The lights in my eyes. Sorry.
Well, some of the images were really distressing, and my heart's still beating really fast. But I'm wondering, what was exactly the motive of the director in making this film? I mean, I'm Assamese, and I know these stories. Orally they don't seem as powerful as the visual medium. But what was the really motive of doing it now, in today's time? Telling stories that are very dark and definitely almost sort of condone sort of superstition, and I'm a bit uncomfortable with this whole. I think it's a bit unfair to ask you the question, but
no. But what I can say is, in no way are we condoning superstition. It's just we are showing it as it was written, and yes, it is dark because the director himself is attracted towards the darker side. Like his next project is an adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's 4 stories from Edgar Allan Poe. So he's always attracted to a darker narrative. So, and beyond that, he's the best person to answer.
thank you.
Another question? The gentleman's directly behind.
Sorry, can I just ask, are the teals interconnected in the source material, or is that added for the purpose of a...
No, it's added for the purpose of the narrative.
Another question? Oh, right.
Not a question, but a comment, actually. I'm an Assamese as well, so grew up listening to these tales. First of all, I was really impressed by how they were interlinked, the 4 fables. But the other thing is actually they are very woman-centric, female-centric fables, and they are also quite metaphorical. They don't have to be taken literally, and they actually present women in kind of multi-dimensional people rather than 2-dimensional creatures or people. So there's greed, love, sacrifice, violence, that everything exists within women, and that can be seen in how the goddesses in in Indian mythology are portrayed. And actually I could also see so many parallels with lots of other folk tales. Like, for example, I am slightly familiar with the folk songs from the UK, and there is some pretty dark material there as well.
Any more questions? No, there's a lady over in the corner there.
Hi, actually I don't have a question, it's mostly to thank you because I'm actually from Majuli.
Oh, okay.
I'm born and brought up, I grew up there, and I'm actually from the tribe where they're dancing. And our people do live in the bamboo houses, so I was a little bit taken aback because I didn't realize the movie was shot at Majuli. So my husband has been there a couple of times, so we're like, okay, going through the whole thing. And also, especially around trying to show one of the ladies in the missing house, especially, it's slightly different from the Assamese folklore.
Yes.
So it's like how I think the movie is trying to combine the entire Assamese culture with a tribe that I belong to, which is mainly the bamboo houses that you've seen, and also the dances that they did around the colorful dresses. That's very specific to my tribe that I come from. So it was really nice to see the combination. So I just wanted to say thank you, and Majuli was great.
Thank you.
It's always my best place to go back home. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Is the gentleman in the back, over the back there?
I'm not a film critic, but I must say that this is a really high standard film considered all the film I have seen from Assam. This is really far superior to all the films which have been produced from Assam. Especially photography and the setting of the scenery were really high class.
Thank you very much. We'd really be grateful if you put some of these comments into social media and, tag us. Yeah. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. It'll mean a lot to our director who was not here he couldn't be here today. So at least he can hear the comments, see the comments.
Is the gentleman just here?
Hi. Yeah. How did the visual effects come about? Because most of it's all practical. Why not? Why was there like a push maybe for computer generated, or was it always wanted to keep it real?
We did very little computer generation. It was just when you see that elephant thing rolling, that bit was done because when the actual shooting took place, we just rudimentary wire and somebody in the background taking it along. And then when we did the computer graphics, they just removed the wire. So that was the only thing. Otherwise, all of it was done with a handheld camera.
It gives a very homegrown, like horror feel, very old school. I liked it.
I saw it. I was watching 8 features a day at that time, but this film kind of stuck in my mind. It was the kind of film that gave me a nightmare the next day.
Yeah, and the first time I watched it, I couldn't watch the end of the Tijimola segment. It was too much for me.
So yeah, take it easy when you're home tonight. Okay, another question. There's a lady just here. Just 2 ladies. One before, then the one after. Okay, just over here, and then we'll come back to you.
Firstly, congratulations on such an amazing storytelling feat. I think you've done really well. It's disturbing, but I think it's been really effective to the audience. The first question was, are there more tales in the Grandma's Tales? And if so,
yes, plenty more.
What made you choose those 4? And how long did it take to film?
We had to do the filming in 2 stages because it was Majuli, and she'll be able to tell you once the level of the water rises, everything changes in the island. So we did the first phase in February 2013, and the second phase in November 2013. And then it took us this much time to get everything together, especially the music.
First of all, congratulations. I thought the stories were brilliant. It's similar, my question is similar to the lady behind. Being that you have several other stories, would you have another set of compendium of movies?
Not right now. Like as I said, his next film is an adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's 4 of his short stories.
And are there any male-centric type of folklore stories as well?
No.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Was there a lady up the back? There was a lady who was asking at the back there first, and then we'll come to you.
Well, I've been lucky enough to go quite regularly to Assam in the last 15 years. And of course, it's changed a lot. But I think it's lovely to see a film where you see these lovely, very carefully built bamboo houses used. And I think it's lovely to see how people live in them still. And probably it will go on changing, but it will be a wonderful document. And I also thought it was a beautifully shot film with wonderful views of the landscape, these wonderful skies above the Brahmaputra, and I think it's marvelous to see, to communicate that to many people.
Thank you. I'll convey it to our DOP.
Gentleman just down here. I think we've got time for a couple of more questions, Alice.
My voice is pretty loud.
Oh, that's good.
I just wanted your comment on, I was most intrigued by that fruit. We call it chalta. In Bangladesh.
You're Bengali, right?
Yes, or tenga.
Yeah.
And then this child who was born from that. And to my surprise, it was a white child. And when you said that some of these stories are 100, 200 years old, I'm just wondering whether that's a bit of a colonial influence.
No, not at all. What we wanted was, we wanted the audience to see that the child inhabiting the Otenga was not a normal child. I mean, every
Okay.
We had to go hunting. The only way we
Not only white, she had red hair, which is very rare among white children too.
Well, we had to go hunting for a albino child to be used. Yeah, and it was very difficult because he was very, very moody. So we had to tempt him with aeroplanes and chocolates. Every morning there was something new coming out for him.
And it was grown up. I mean, it was
Yeah,
like a 5-year-old almost. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions? We'd just like to thank Upala for being with us, and good luck with the film.
Thank you.